Yeah, if you want me to take care of you, I can take care of you. But yeah, I eat a lot as well, so if you're okay with that, then you gotta take care of me too.
I'm very curious about trying your cooking sometime.
I would love that. Maybe do something tomorrow.
Yes.
You know, I think I would love that.
Global heritage will unite. We share brilliant values and honor the world's most cherished legacies to pass our heritage on to future generations. Busan invites you. The 48th session of UNESCO World Heritage Committee. July 2026, Busan, Korea.
In our headlines on this Friday, February 13th, here in South Korea, snowboarder Choi Ga-on wins the gold in the women's halfpipe at the Milano Cortina Winter Games in a dramatic turn of events after her first two falls. Meanwhile, a Japanese news agency says Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi will visit South Korea in March, in line with the two countries' back-and-forth diplomacy. And the Finance Ministry says the Korean economy continues to gain strength, bolstered by domestic consumption and overseas demand for semiconductors. Korea's economy appears to be sustaining its climb toward broader stability on the back of stronger domestic consumption and overseas semiconductor sales. Now, this is according to the Finance and Economy Ministry. Our correspondent Kim Jun-hong covers its latest assessment.
South Korea's economy continued its recent positive trend in January, supported by stronger consumer confidence and the semiconductor-led export boom. That's according to the Ministry of Finance and Economy's monthly Green Book, which has described the economy as being in recovery for a fourth straight month.
The economy is maintaining its rebound, with consumption picking up and semiconductor exports leading the way. Although indicators briefly adjusted in October due to base effects, the recovery trend has resumed since November.
In December, overall industrial output rose 1.5% from a month earlier, with gains in manufacturing, construction, and services. Service output, retail sales, and construction investment also increased. Facility investment, however, fell 3.6%. Exports totaled $65.8 billion in January, up 33.9% from a year earlier to reach the highest January figure on record. The ministry credited robust semiconductor shipments, which posted triple-digit on-year growth for leading the export surge. Total exports to the United States, China, and ASEAN countries all increased. Consumer confidence improved in January, with the index edging up 1 point from a month earlier to 110.8. Inflation rose 2.0% from a year earlier, as price pressures on agricultural and seafood products eased. However, the finance ministry voiced continued concerns over the pace of recovery in construction investment, the impact of U.S. tariffs, and weak job conditions in vulnerable sectors. It added that it will step up macroeconomic support while pushing measures to revitalize consumption, investment, and exports. 김준홍, Arirang News.
Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi may visit South Korea in March for talks with President Lee Jae-myung. Now, citing unnamed government sources, Japanese news agency Jiji Press reported back on Thursday that the visit is being considered as part of the two leaders' back-and-forth diplomacy, with President Lee Jae-myung's hometown of Andong City in Gyeongsang-buk-do Province as a possible venue. A Blue House official told Arirang News that while both sides remain committed to continuing these summit exchanges, no specific dates have been set. The two leaders last met in Japan's Nara Prefecture last month. Here on the peninsula, North Korea's Kim Yo-jong has responded to recent remarks of regret by Unification Minister Chung Dong-young with regard to drone incursions into the regime by civilians here. Our Lee Seung-jae covers this response.
The younger sister of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has responded to South Korea's recent expression of regret over a drone incursion, calling the move sensible, while demanding concrete steps to prevent a repeat. In a statement carried by the North Korean Central News Agency on Friday, Kim Yo-jong said it was fortunate that South Korean Unification Minister Chung Dong-young officially expressed regret over what Pyongyang called a drone intrusion into its territory. She said she appreciated the remark as sensible behavior. Earlier this week, Chung voiced regret over drones allegedly sent to the north by civilians and said Seoul is pursuing mutual recognition and peaceful coexistence between the two Koreas. Kim Yo-jong, however, stressed that responsibility ultimately lies with the South Korean government. She said Pyongyang is less concerned about who organized the flights, whether individuals or private groups, and more focused on what it calls a serious violation of sovereignty and national airspace. She also issued a warning saying any recurrence of what the North views as provocations would trigger a harsh response. According to her statement, one of several counterattack options would be selected, and the response would go beyond proportionality. Kim's remarks on Seoul's response, however, were not published in the Nodong Shimun, the North's main newspaper for domestic readers. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Earlier this week, top diplomatic and trade officials of South Korea and the Netherlands sat down for their first meeting under the so-called 2+2 framework to seek ways to strengthen partnership. Well, for more insight into those initiatives, our Oh Soo-young reached out to the Dutch foreign minister to take a listen.
South Korea and the Netherlands are natural partners in chip technology and are bound together as liberal democratic middle powers. That's according to Dutch Foreign Minister David van Bijl, speaking with Arirang News during his visit to Seoul.
So I think that both the Netherlands and Korea have been thriving due to the international rules-based order that's been built in the 80 years since the Second World War. We are both entrepreneurial countries, we have open economies, we are outward-oriented, we depend on other countries for our well-being and our economies, so that really binds us together.
The first 2+2 meeting of foreign and trade ministers took place in Seoul on Wednesday, with the two countries' semiconductor alliance as the main agenda. While Korea's Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix produce more than half the world's memory chips, Dutch firm ASML's lithography technology is an integral part of producing the most advanced semiconductors.
I think we're very complementary, but we also want to make sure that we safeguard this technology, use it in a responsible way, and also make sure that our potential adversaries don't make misuse of this.
This comes amid supply chain disruptions, economic coercion by larger powers, and technological rivalry.
I think it's very important for middle powers like Korea and the Netherlands are to hold hands and to make sure that we keep advocating this international rules-based order that has brought us so much. And yes, that sometimes means that you also need to reduce dependencies, whether it's in the field of security or in the field of economy, to get a more even balanced approach within our alliances.
Cooperation is also broadening beyond economics to include defence and regional security in the Indo-Pacific.
Last year, our navies conducted a joint exercise, and as a former naval officer and also having spent time in NATO working on hybrid threats and cybersecurity, how do you intend to deepen the security partnership between South Korea and the Netherlands?
So I think there's a lot of opportunities in defense industry, in defense innovation, because both of our countries are very highly involved in new technologies, and we will see those technologies also seeping into the military, whether it's AI, the use of drones, which we're already seeing in Ukraine, or cyber. This will be a large part, and also we believe it important to be present in this region, if only for the freedom of navigation that we hold so high. So we will send a frigate again this year in 2026 to the region to participate in exercises with various countries here.
Also during his visit, Van Bael met with Unification Minister Chung Dong-young in light of Seoul's new policy of peaceful coexistence with North Korea. The Dutch Foreign Minister noted with caution Pyongyang's ongoing cooperation with Russia.
It has been supplying soldiers, it has been supplying equipment, and that cooperation only seems to deepen. At the moment, that makes it very, very hard to see anything positive happening vis-à-vis the North Korean regime. And I think that at the moment we would advocate for sanctions and pressure to stop this alignment and to make sure that North Korea doesn't gain any sensitive technologies from Russia in return for their help on this senseless war of aggression in Ukraine.
As Seoul and The Hague advanced their strategic partnership, the minister emphasized underlying common values.
I believe that we have a great basis to build on. I probably insulted your nation by saying you are like the Dutch people in Asia, but I mean that in a very positive way, that you are forthcoming, you are entrepreneurial, you are outgoing, and when you make a deal, it is a deal. And that for us are golden values that we find reflected in Korean society as well.
Minister David Van Bael, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Import prices here rose for the 7th month in a row in January, despite a dip in global oil prices and a weaker US dollar. The data from the Bank of Korea shows the import price index inched up 0.4% on month, driven by raw materials and intermediate goods. Meanwhile, export prices jumped 4% on month, led by manufacturing products. The volume of exports also surged 28.3% on year, bolstered by soaring technology demand. Analysts say exports have enhanced Korea's trade conditions, with the net barter terms of trade gaining 8.9% on year. And Moody's Investor Service has kept South Korea's sovereign credit rating at AA2 with a stable outlook. Now, this rating has been retained by South Korea since December 2015 and is the third highest level under the Moody's rating table. The agency linked the latest rating to steady institutional management in addressing relevant challenges. It also forecasts that the local economy would grow 1.8% this year, driven by chip exports amid growing AI-related investments. This outlook falls largely in line with that by other international organizations. On the cultural front, a Grammy Award-winning musician wrote, directed and stars in a movie titled K-Pops that shares a deeply personal story of family and ambition. Our culture correspondent Paak spoke with him.
A new K-pop challenge for this African-American artist of ethnic Korean heritage, Anderson Paak. The multi-Grammy winner is pulling double duty, starring in and directing the upcoming movie K-Pops. The film centers on a struggling musician who reconnects with his rising K-pop star son and enters Seoul's fiercely competitive K-pop scene. And the inspiration, his K-pop loving son, who also appears in the movie as his on-screen son.
He was like, I don't really want to listen to your music, Dad. I'm listening to BTS, Stray Kids. He was into it, and I was kind of like the odd man out. And so I was learning about all the K-pop music. I thought that could be a unique way to tell and shine a light on both sides of my culture, my Black culture and my Korean culture.
The idea was born during COVID when his tour was halted, and father-son time naturally increased, eventually leading to 5 years of working and acting together. Paak says his son was a constant source of encouragement along the way.
I didn't know that if I could be on set 6 a.m. every day and also learn my lines, also get the music done, I was getting scared. And I was asking my son, like, do you want to do this still? And he was like, I better do this. I've been in acting classes and dancing classes for a year. Like, I'm ready. Let's do it. And so I was like, all right, let's do it, man. I'm ready to go. If you're not scared, I'm not scared. And we'll learn this together. And
beyond the hard work, he says the project allowed him to expand his artistry beyond music and to share it at a time when K-pop dominates the global stage.
I think it's just impeccable, like on the heels of things like K-pop Demon Hunters. And I just hope that the people within K-pop continue to appreciate the culture, the art, and, continue to go back and maybe bring and reach back within, some of the people that they pulled from.
The film also features K-pop heavyweights, including G-Dragon, Vernon of 17, Jay Park, and Jessie in cameo roles and on the official soundtrack. And for the cast, the story also hits close to home.
It's very reflective of our own journey as struggling musicians. There's a lot of similarities between the Black and Korean community, and in a world where everything online is so divisive and everyone's kind of fighting on the internet. We wanted to bring kind of joy through music and two communities together through music.
I can win the competition. Bridging cultures through a shared musical journey, the film's already gaining global attention after screening at major festivals, including the Toronto International Film Festival. And now, K-Pops is set to hit US theaters on February 27th. Paak, Arirang News.
And curtains have gone up for this year's League of Legends champions Korea, with the playoffs kicking off back on Thursday here at the home stadium. Our Chung Hye-rim files this report.
Surrounded by legendary champion statues and bathed in immersive blue lighting, this is Chijijik Park. Known as the beating heart of League of Legends champions Korea, this dedicated gaming stadium hosted the first round of the playoffs on Thursday, featuring 5 matches between DN Supers and BNK. At the entrance, a shop filled with fan favorites from uniforms to League of Legends merchandise. The playoffs have attracted many fans of both teams who are eager to show their support, including at the Biljiwater zone, where people can design their own cheer banners.
I'm a big fan of Dudu, and today's a revenge match, so I hope his team wins. Good luck, DN Supers.
The stadium also featured events run by the teams. BNK hosted a booth with their signature Fox character. As LCK is loved by both domestic and international fans, the stadium was also full of tourist attractions. Team uniforms, accessories, and trophies were on display, highlighting the significance of Korea's role in esports.
Yeah, it looks very impressive. I've been on to venues in Europe, for example, and they're also very impressive, but this is like another level.
One by one, fans entered the stadium, filling the arena with raw emotion. Fans roared with excitement at every kill, or groaned in collective disappointment as the tide of battle turned. DN Supers took the first set, defying most predictions and showcasing their determination to reach the top.
With the first round of the 2026 LCK Cup playoffs just finished, the atmosphere here at the LCK Arena is electric. The winner today will take a step closer to the finals in Hong Kong.
However, the battle was far from over. The series turned into a grueling marathon going the full 5 sets. Despite DN Super's early momentum, BNK fought back fiercely and ultimately secured a hard-fought 3-2 victory late into the night. The match was a reminder of the intense passion that drives the league. As the road to Hong Kong continues, the heat of the LCK is burning hotter than ever. 정혜림, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, at the Winter Games in Italy, South Korean snowboarder Choi Ga-on has become the latest living testimony of the popular phrase, "the third time's the charm." Our Kim Do-yeon explains.
From the brink of being taken off the course on a stretcher to the top of the podium, 17-year-old Choi Ga-on took gold in the snowboard halfpipe at the Milano Cortina Winter Games on Thursday, despite falling on her first 2 runs. Her first fall was especially concerning, with officials even preparing a stretcher fearing a serious injury. She managed to get up, but fell again in her second run, leaving her sitting in last place with 1 chance left. In her third and final run, Choi landed her signature switch backside 900 perfectly. Judges awarded her a massive 90.25, vaulting her past defending champion from the US, Chloe Kim, who was leading with a score of 88. When Kim fell on her own final run, Choi's victory was sealed. Ironically, Choi had named Kim as her idol in an interview with Korean broadcaster JTBC prior to the competition, saying Kim never gives up and stays focused to win on her third run, even if she falls on her first 2. Both competitors' relationship also goes a long way back, as Kim's father helped Choi train and compete in the US from a young age. Choi has now broken Chloe Kim's record to become the youngest ever winner in this event while securing the nation's first ever gold in snowboarding. South Korea has stayed strong in the snowboarding section during this event as a whole, picking up a gold, a silver, and a bronze medal. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Hello and welcome. I am your AI sports correspondent, Arirang. This section features AI-generated content and scripts, bringing you the latest news from the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026. Here are our top stories. South Korean skater Im Jong-un has won the bronze medal in the men's 1,000-meter short track. The 18-year-old clocked a time of 1 minute and 24.611 seconds after making a late push from 5th place to the lead group during the final lap. Following a photo finish, officials awarded the gold medal to Jens van About of the Netherlands and silver to China's Sun Rong. This podium finish at the Milano Ice Skating Arena on Thursday is the first medal for the South Korean short track team and the nation's 4th overall at the 2026 Games. The South Korean women's curling team defeated host nation Italy 7-2 in their second round-robin match on Friday in Cortina d'Ampezzo. Led by skip Kim Eun-ji, the Korean squad secured a decisive 4-point lead in the 6th end, which prompted Italy to concede the match. The victory gives South Korea a 1-1 record in the preliminary stage following an opening loss to the United States. The team will face Great Britain on Friday. South Korean skeleton athlete Jung Seung-gi finished in a tie for 8th place after the first 2 runs on Thursday at the Cortina Sliding Center. Jung recorded a combined time of 1 minute, 53.22 seconds, trailing leader Matt Weston of Great Britain by 1.13 seconds. The result places Jung in a 3-way tie for 8th place, with Chinese sliders Yin Zheng and Lin Qinhui heading into the final day of competition on Friday. Freestyle skier Jung Dae-yoon finished 19th in the men's moguls on Thursday. Jung reached the first final at Living Yo Aerial's Moguls Park after placing 4th in the second qualification round, but a balance error during his final descent resulted in a score of 34.28, The mistake prevented the 2025 FIS World Championships bronze medalist from making the top 8 and advancing to the final round to compete for a medal. Before we head out, let's look ahead. Appearing now on your screen are the current medal standings and the upcoming schedule for the Olympic Winter Games Milano Cortina 2026.
Ultrafine dust levels are at emergency levels this evening. The first high concentration dust reduction measures of the year have been issued for Seoul, Gyeonggi-do, and the west of Gangwon-do province. But air quality will get worse as we move into the night. And many dry weather advisories have been lifted except for the East Coast. But with warm and dry conditions continuing and more people visiting grave sites during the holiday period, wildfire risks remain elevated. Tomorrow morning, Seoul wakes up to a low of 4 degrees Celsius, Gwangju at 2 degrees. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will make it to 12 degrees Celsius, Daegu, Gyeongju at 17 degrees. Now, Lunar New Year's Day and the final day of the holiday will be mostly clear and mild, though mornings will dip below freezing. With that in mind, here's a look at the international weather conditions. Right, those are the headlines at this hour here in South Korea. As always, thank you for watching.
The new shopping game is starting.
어렸을 때 아버지가 클래식을 좋아하셔서 자연스럽게 공연장을 이제 가족들이 다 같이 가게 되었는데, 그때 포피아노 연주를 제가 실제로 가서 봤었는데 그때 이제 너무 멋있다 생각이 들어서 부모님께 피아노를 하고 싶다고 졸랐습니다. 저조차도 누군가의 연주를 보고 이렇게 피아니스트를 꿈꿔왔듯이 누군가도 제 연주를 듣고 다양한 감정을 이렇게 느꼈으면 좋겠어요. 어쨌든 저는 21세기 사람이니까 21세기의 트렌드를 또 이러면 안 될 것 같아서 간혹은 또 가요나 팝송도 많이 들으려고 노력하고 있고요. 그러다가도 또 이제 다시 클래식으로 돌아오게 되더라고요. 그냥 클래식 음악은 진짜 어떤 시대에 들어도 누구나 공감할 수 있다고 생각을 해서 그래서 클래식 음악이 제일 마음에 와닿는 것 같아요. 지나바카오 콩쿠르에서 특히 2라운드 연주가 저는 항상 기억에 남는 게 너무 무서웠어요, 사실. 한 음만 치는데 다음 음이 뭐였는지 기억이 안 날까 봐 너무 두렵더라고요. 악몽을 너무 많이 꿨었고 연습을 하는데도 불구하고 끝까지 안 되는 음악적인 패시지라든지 테크닉적인 패시지들이 있는데 그게 무대 위에서 정말 무의식적인 세계에서 갑자기 해결이 되는 경우가 있더라고요. 그랬을 때 이제 희열을 확 느끼는 것 같아요. 제가 지금 공부하고 있는 곡들, 즐겨 연주하고 있는 곡들이 사실 클래식 음악을 처음 접하는 분들에겐 익숙하지 않은 곡들이지만 지금 제 나이에 가장 잘 표현할 수 있는 음악이라고 생각을 해서 그런 레퍼토리를 준비를 하고 있는 거니까 같이 즐겨주시고 같이 공유해 주시면 감사하겠습니다.
Immigration policies are back under the spotlight as countries weigh the pros and cons of opening or closing their doors to foreigners seeking a new lease on life. With details up next. Hello, welcome. You're watching Press Perspective for this Friday, February 13th here in Seoul. I'm Min Sun-hee. The task of making a new home away from one's old home can be a tough experience. And today we touch upon that journey here in South Korea and elsewhere. For more on this, I have Anna with French weekly La Tribune Dimanche. Anna, it's been a while. Welcome back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me here today.
I also have writer Colin with us. Colin, welcome back.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
And now we shall start with you. So over 11,000 foreigners garnered South Korean citizenship last year. Let's start with some details regarding that particular finding.
Yeah, well, in 2025, more than 11,000 foreigners were granted Korean citizenship, which represents about 60% of all applicants. And it makes like the highest number since COVID-19 pandemic. So first of all, looking at nationalities, Chinese citizens made more than 50% of all naturalizations, followed by Vietnamese, Filipinos, and Thais. And on top of that, more than 4,000 people regained Korean nationality after previously renouncing it. So it's highlighting the continued interest in Korean citizenship. And now taking a closer look, this increase is happening as the foreign population in Korea continue to grow, reaching 2.73 million in 2025, with around 60% long-term residents, mostly based in the Seoul area. So also many of these foreigners play an important role for the country economy and in local communities, working in sectors such as agriculture, construction, manufacturing, education, or healthcare. So I think that what we cannot ignore here is that the rising number of naturalization and the growing foreign resident population also go with broader demographic challenges in South Korea. So of course I'm thinking about the population decline with the low fertility rate of 0.75 birth per women, and also the fact that the population and the society is aging, is more and more aging, and becoming super aged, with about 20% of people being age 65 or older. So in this context, foreign workers are increasingly important for the country's society and the country's economy, but of course they cannot fully solve the population decline problem by themselves, but their contribution is really important for the country's economy and society.
You're right, for sure. And Colin, for the sake of context, could you walk us through the journey of acquiring South Korean citizenship? I understand it also involves a very daunting test.
Yes, I can explain it to some degree. I haven't done it myself yet, although I do intend to, so I've been researching it independently of this program as well. And it is not the easiest process compared to some other countries, certainly compared to the US, where I'm from. But first, you tend to have to live and work here for a while. In most cases, it's about 5 years of living and working in Korea, which might require stepping up your visa from the first one you got working here. So that's difficult in and of itself, but not really part of the process officially. You have to prove your economic wherewithal here, that you can support yourself and so on and so forth, with various documentation, not always easy to get. And then once you get through that, you take a written test, which is about 40 minutes long. And of course, it's in Korean, and it is effectively a language test, testing that you have a command of Korean, or at least an ability to read. And it's questions which test, yes, language skills, but also knowledge, basic knowledge of Korean history and society and politics. Things we could all, even if we're Korean, do well to brush up on. And indeed, when a Japanese celebrity, I believe it was, posted a while ago to social media some of the questions encountered on the test, there was a bit of a controversy or surprise on the part of Korean netizens, replying, boy, I mean, I don't think we could get these answers. They were seen as hard even for Koreans, although I think it meant more, they were about information or facts that an ordinary Korean has no reason to command on a day-to-day basis. And so if you study for it, you can do it. Like most Korean tests, it's about getting the answers out in a short frame of time. And if you do that, if you succeed at the written test, then there is an interview. And that's the more daunting part. It's about 20, 30 minutes long, and it's you and 2 interviewers. So that ratio right there gets you sweating. Make sure not to show up late. And they'll ask you questions about your own life. Yes, it's possible to test your language skills, but also the kind of material you have to know for the test. So you have to know about Korea too, and they can ask you questions of a wide range of subjects. So you've got to be prepared, and you won't know exactly what they're going to ask. And it's common to not pass the first time, to have to take it a few times. So that's a stage of the process, and it varies in different cases. Foreigners married to Korean individuals have a sort of not expedited, but a simplified process. But most cases of naturalization are like I described. And there's I don't know if it's controversy, but there's always discourse, or there has been in recent years, about whether it's too hard. Is the wall too high? Or there's also, is the wall too low, in that the test, I described, the written test, doesn't test listening skills. And so sometimes a foreigner will get through the written component only to find they can't speak well enough for the interview. And so, to my mind, it's not excessive to require that level of written and spoken Korean, but there is, of course, the question, as Anna referenced, of bringing in more foreigners. And is there a way to do that it's not just making it easier? People don't really know yet, and it's a question many Koreans have not thought about themselves.
Right. Well, for now, advocates here are calling for a widening of doors to immigration, but at the same time, South Korea's counterparts are seeking to close their own doors. Could you tell us a bit more about this?
Yeah, well, first, what caught my attention first was Japan, because it's the country close to South Korea and also facing a declining aging population. So currently, the Japanese government and ruling parties are considering tightening the rules for getting the Japanese nationality. So currently, the nationality law requires that you lived in the country for at least continuously for at least 5 years, and you have also other requirements such as being 18 or older, having a good record, being financially self-sufficient, for example. But now Japan is considering raising the residency requirement from 5 to 10 years, making it significantly harder to become a citizen, even though meeting the current criteria won't guarantee you Japanese nationality. For example, in 2024, there was 60% of applications which were approved. And now regarding European countries, my attention was also drawn to the case of Sweden, because they are also considering tightening the rules for getting naturalization, and it will start in June 2026. So until now, to obtain the citizenship, the foreigners have to live in the country for 5 years, but this requirement will increase to 8 years. And if someone has a criminal record, this requirement will be even longer. For example, if you have to serve a 4-year sentence, prison sentence, you will have to wait for 15 years. And they also introduced new conditions like basic language test and culture test also. And they also introduced another requirement, which is that the applicants will have to have a minimum of a monthly income of $2,200. But about this requirement, the government points out that because it is way below the average wage in Sweden, every applicant who are fully working in the country should match this requirement without any difficulty. So all of this is also part of a bigger picture in Sweden, with successive government tightening migration rules since 2016, and because in 2016, about 160,000 asylum seekers sought refuge in Sweden.
Right, I see. Meanwhile, Colin, with regard to the US, Mr. Trump's hardline stance on immigration is forecast to weigh on the US economy. What have you been hearing?
Yes, there was a study recently put out saying essentially that the US population could start to shrink as a result of Trump-style clamping down on immigration by the year sort of 2081. So this is a little far afield, and any prediction at that distance is difficult to trust one way or the other. It could be worse. It could not be so bad. Who knows? But of course, this is taken as a political issue, because immigration itself is the issue right now, you could say, in many ways in the United States and other countries as well, including in parts of Western Europe. And, the Trump administration is often described as having come to power on anti-immigrant sentiment, although it does seem to be more anti-illegal immigrant sentiment. I know Trump's people claim to have deported 160,000 illegal immigrants so far. It's probably less than that. Hard to get numbers on this by its very nature. But for many of Trump's, I suppose, supporters, you could say, frustration with the immigration system and with the fact that its laws on the books don't seem to be enforced played a part. Even for those voters who didn't really like Trump personally, they do start to feel like something is wrong here in the way this country is doing immigration, referring to the US. And taking that in mind, you can sort of get a sense of the psychology at work here, because when you look at the foreign press, even the Korean press, talking about this study and about sort of Trump's immigration-related policies and choices, they often refer to the U.S. as the nation of immigrants. And this is a common phrase in recent decades. It is a more recent phrase than people think. I mean, in popular usage, it goes back to the early 60s from a book written by President John F. Kennedy, A Nation of Immigrants. And it was part of a larger cultural bid to redefine the U.S. as that, as a country defined by immigration, whereas it was not really thought of that way to that point. And what I think surprises many non-Americans in the world is how few Americans see the country that way. For most of U.S. history, most Americans have not seen the U.S. as being constituted by immigrants, and many Americans to this day do not see themselves as meaningfully descended from immigrants, the distinction being between settlers and immigrants, those who built a society and those who joined it. This can all be argued, but the viewpoint does exist, and it exists in fairly large numbers in the US. And I think if you look for who to blame for the rise of Trump, which everybody's always doing and will be doing long after Trump is gone, part of it is this idea of this nation of immigrants idea being sort of put forth as if it were unassailable, as if it were not even up for debate. And I think more than a few Americans started to think, I don't see the country this way. And suddenly, the place I'm from is being redefined under my feet. And that's a danger, I think, in a country like South Korea as well. Perhaps immigrants are needed in greater numbers than are currently here, than are being let in. But if it starts to feel like the people were never consulted, that brings about a bad result, including the presidency of the US we've been talking about these past few questions.
Right, and speaking about consulting the people, and a recent survey here in South Korea seeks to share the thoughts of the public here with regard to their foreign residents. Do tell us a bit about the survey.
Yeah, well, according to this survey, it was conducted at the end of 2024, by the Korean Institute for Migratory Policy. 40% of South Koreans perceive immigrants as contributing positively to the country's economy. So they identified the main contribution of immigrants as filling labor shortage in the job market, boosting the local economy with their spendings, or contributing to the public finances by paying taxes. But in contrast, over 30% say that the immigrant could pose a threat to the economy. And their main concerns include economic losses from illegal residency, undeclared work, tax evasion, and they also fear higher social insurance and welfare costs. And when it comes to jobs, in a country where many young people are already struggling to find a job in a highly competitive environment, South Koreans definitely think that they should prioritize nationals. So 83% of respondents think that if there aren't enough job positions, then they should go to South Koreans instead of foreign workers or immigrants. Finally, the respondents think the government should mainly handle immigration for practical and economic reasons, like providing workers where they are needed, attracting foreign talent, managing how immigrants could stay and how many immigrants could stay and come in South Korea. But very few think the effort of the government should focus on helping the immigrants, adapting to the life in South Korea, for example, learning the language, making friends, or even integrating into local communities.
Right. Colin, you've been living here for quite a while now. What have been some of your observations with regard to the response of South Koreans to the growing population of long-term foreign residents here in South Korea, which, as Anna mentioned earlier, exceeds well over 2 million now?
Right, and on this same survey, I believe it was, of Korean opinion on these subjects and related subjects about immigration, most Koreans, or half, I wouldn't say most, half of the sample of Koreans polled responded that they didn't realize how many there were. I think it might have been 49%, something like that. But about half of Koreans did not realize that there were so many. And it makes sense to me because most Koreans, I get the impression, don't come into contact with recent immigrants in their everyday life. If you do, it's kind of the defining event of the day in some cases, let alone, I could just say foreigners, let alone immigrants who have naturalized here. It's a fairly rare thing in the life of most Koreans to even see it in front of them. And so there's a mismatch to an extent between the numbers and the actual lived experience of the country here. I mean, even there are many foreigners in Korea who don't meet that many foreigners. So if you think of it that way, it starts to seem, well, maybe these immigrants who are here are not evenly distributed in the country, geographically or in the sectors they're working in. Certainly, they're not represented in the media other than, say, in certain special cases. And I'm saying that as a foreigner speaking in the media right now, I suppose. But it is notable as well in the responses to these surveys, to this particular survey, that, a question like, do you think there should be more immigration? Should there be less immigration? Or should it stay the same? A plurality of Koreans, some 40+%, say it should stay the same. About 20% say more. 20% say less. That's not so different. The rest say they don't know, which is, to me, the same as saying they don't really have much opinion at all. it's not as charged an issue as in the US still, of course, and why would it be? But at the same time, you can sense this is perhaps, immigration is perhaps more of, it's a matter of import among or to elite opinion in Korea, whether it be in government or business, and not so much to everybody else, not yet anyway.
Right. Meanwhile, Anna, beyond national borders then, back in 2023, I believe, France's parliament passed a controversial immigration law. Could you tell us a bit about that? And what's the latest on that front, in fact?
Yeah, well, at the time I was still living in Paris, so I can remember how controversial this immigration law was. So yeah, for example, at the time there was a left-wing newspaper who ran a petition for President Macron not to sign the law, and with many well-known French artists and well-known politicians adding their signatures. So at the time, the reform was criticized as a stepping stone for far-right nationalist ideology, also described as a law of hate and division, and as a serious threat to the cohesion of our society. And the far left went even further, demanding the law be completely withdrawn. So after it was passed by the Senate and National Assembly in December 2023, a month later, the Constitutional Council ended up invalidating nearly 40% of its articles, either partially or fully. And some of the parts who were invalidated were considered as unconstitutional. For example, requiring foreign students to give a deposit if they want to come to study in France, restriction on family reunifications, and ending automatic birthright nationalizations, and limiting access to social benefits for foreigners. However, recently, new rules for naturalization stemming from this law have been put into effect in France since early 2026. So similar to what I mentioned about Sweden, France has introduced a kind of a test, an exam about French values and French history, and you have to reach at least 80% to pass the exam. And at the same time, they increased the required level of French, so now it matches the required French level for, is the same level for French foreign students entering French university.
Right, I see. Well, and Colin, here is the million-dollar question then. Keeping in mind what we've discussed thus far, what do you suppose are the tasks, perhaps, and this going beyond borders, what are the tasks that need to be tackled, if you will, to ensure a sound immigration policy?
Well, to take my own country, the US, as a somewhat cautionary example, I would say the first priority is to make sure immigration law is clear, is unambiguous, is not subject to sudden change, and is enforced as it's written in the books. I would suggest looking at the US and understanding the dangers of relying on a vast black market of labor consisting of illegal immigrants, without which some economists say the US economy would collapse. So let's not open the door too wide in that direction, if possible, in Korea. Make sure people know what it takes to immigrate and that these rules are clearly and fairly enforced, clearly articulated and fairly enforced. And I don't know if it's necessarily in Korea's interest to lower the bar, to lower the sort of ledge of the door, as I'm trying to translate a Korean expression in my mind right now. But I do think it's important to also focus on potential immigrants who are most willing and able to assimilate. It's a point that comes to my mind every time these discussions arise, that when I see potential revisions to Korean immigration policy, often the goal is clearly to bring in foreign professionals who are already qualified, already credentialed, already formed. And South Korea is not a country culturally well suited to accept foreign professionals of that kind anyway in large numbers, or it's too late to assimilate at some point. But that aside, they're not really easily transplantable in a way that guarantees you a sort of robust population going forward, like planting an orchard. You can't transplant a whole orchard. You've got to start from the seeds or the saplings. Bring in immigrants who are, again, assimilable, and maybe their children will become the professionals or the entrepreneurs or whatever it is you claim to be looking for with immigration policy. But it doesn't necessarily work to try to rely on other countries to supply you them. And that's another way the US is having problems these days, is sort of relying on cheap PhDs from abroad and not cultivating the population at home. And this is another sort of factor in the rise of Trumpism, if you like, is the sense that the US no longer cares about Americans. that cares about economic growth, and if that means the native population can be forgotten in the name of sort of bringing in foreigners who are supposedly better qualified or harder workers, then so be it. I mean, you don't want your own people to get that idea that that's what you're doing. So those are my words of advice from American experience. Whether it applies to Korea, we'll find out in the fullness of time.
All right, we shall find out soon. All right, I'm afraid that's all the time we have. But Colin, as always, thank you so much for your insights today.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you.
Right, that ends this week's editions of Press Perspective. Thank you for watching. Now we return same time next Thursday after the long weekend to celebrate the Lunar New Year holiday here in this part of the world. So be sure to join us then. Happy holidays.